The galaxy had been quiet for 50,000 years. No human voice had spoken across the stars. No human ship had traveled between worlds. No human signal had reached the countless civilizations that now filled the cosmos. It was as if humanity had never existed at all. The elder races called this time the Great Silence. They told stories about the humans to their children. Once, they said, there was a young species that burned bright and fast. They spread across 1,000 worlds in just 200 years. They were curious and bold, and sometimes dangerous. And then one day, without any warning, they simply vanished. Some races believed the humans had destroyed themselves in a great war. Others thought a plague had wiped them out. A few whispered that the humans had found something terrible in the dark spaces between stars, something that had swallowed them whole. But no one knew the truth. The human world stood empty and silent, and no one dared to visit them. Ambassador Veltrix of the Kef Collective was old, even by the standards of his long-lived species. He had served on the Galactic Council for 300 years. He had seen empires rise and fall. He had watched new species take their first steps into space. He thought he had seen everything the universe had to offer. He was wrong. Veltrix stood before the council chamber, his forearms trembling as he held the data tablet. The chamber was vast, filled with representatives from 100 different species. They sat in rows that curved around a central platform where Veltrix now stood alone. 3 days ago, Veltrix began, his voice shaking. A deep space probe detected an anomaly at the edge of known space. The probe was exploring the outer regions of what we call the Soul Exclusion Zone. A murmur ran through the chamber. The Soul Exclusion Zone was the area of space where humanity had once lived. No species had entered that region in thousands of years. It was considered cursed, haunted by the ghosts of a dead civilization. The probe detected a transmission, Veltrix continued. A signal broadcasting on all frequencies with enough power to reach every corner of the galaxy. The signal is human in origin. The murmur became a roar. Council members shouted questions. Some stood up from their seats. Others simply stared in shock. Veltrix raised his arms for silence. The message has been translated, he said. It contains only 2 words. He touched his data tablet, and the message appeared on every screen in the chamber. Flee. Now the chamber fell silent. For a long moment, no one moved. No one spoke. They simply stared at those 2 simple words, trying to understand what they meant. Far from the council chamber, in a small observation vessel called the Endless Horizon, Commander Daniel Cole was the first to hear the full transmission. His ship was part of a scientific fleet studying the outer regions of space. When the message came through, every system on his ship lit up with alerts. Daniel was 42 years old, with gray hair and tired eyes. He had spent 20 years in space, exploring distant worlds and mapping unknown regions. He had seen wonders that most beings could only dream of. But he had never seen anything like this. Play it again, he said to his communications officer, a young Velthari named Shrix. Shrix touched her console, and the message filled the bridge once more. It was a human voice, speaking in the ancient tongue that humans had used 50,000 years ago. The translation appeared on the main screen. Now, the voice was calm and steady. There was no fear in it, no panic. It sounded almost sad, like someone delivering bad news to a friend. Daniel stood up from his command chair and walked to the main viewport. Outside, the stars burned cold and bright against the endless black. Somewhere out there, in the region of space that had been forbidden for millennia, something had awakened. Sir, Shrix said, her voice uncertain. What does it mean? Why would the humans send a warning after all this time? Daniel did not answer right away. He was thinking about the stories he had heard as a child. His grandmother had been a historian who specialized in human culture. She had told him about the humans, about their strange mix of kindness and violence, their endless curiosity, their refusal to accept limits. The humans were many things, his grandmother had said, but they were never cowards. If they ran from something, it was because that something could not be fought. Daniel turned back to face his crew. The bridge was filled with beings from a dozen different species, all of them looking at him with fear in their eyes. "Send the message to the council," he said. "Full priority. And begin scanning the soul exclusion zone. I want to know everything that is happening out there." "Sir," another officer spoke up, "the exclusion zone is forbidden. If we enter that space, we could be arrested." Daniel smiled, but there was no humor in it. "I do not think anyone will be worried about laws very soon. Something is coming. The humans knew it 50,000 years ago. They tried to warn us." He looked back at the viewport, at the stars that suddenly seemed much darker than before. "The question is," he said quietly, "what did they find out there? And why did they wait so long to tell us to run?" Across the galaxy, the message continued to broadcast. "Flee. Now." Two simple words that echoed through every communication system, every data network, every receiver capable of picking up signals. Beings on a million worlds heard those words and felt a chill they could not explain. On the Galactic Council, emergency sessions were called. Military fleets were mobilized. Scientists began analyzing the signal, trying to determine its exact origin. Panic spread through the population as news of the message leaked to the public. But amid all the chaos, a few beings noticed something strange. The message was not just a warning. It was also a beacon. Hidden within the signal was a set of coordinates, pointing to a dead world on the edge of human space. A world called Kepler-442b. Dr. Lisa Morgan was one of the few humans left in the galaxy. Her ancestors had been colonists on a distant world, far from Earth, when the Great Silence began. They had been cut off from the rest of humanity and had survived alone for 50,000 years. Lisa was an archaeologist who studied the ruins of dead civilizations. When she heard about the coordinates hidden in the human message, she knew she had to go there. She gathered a team of researchers and secured a ship capable of making the long journey. "You are crazy," her colleague told her. "The soul exclusion zone is dangerous. No one who enters that space ever comes back." Lisa just smiled. "My ancestors were human," she said. "Whatever is out there, whatever my people left behind, I need to see it for myself." She boarded her ship and set course for Kepler-442b. She did not know that her journey would change the fate of the entire galaxy. She did not know that beneath the dead surface of that world, something was waiting for her. Something that had been sleeping for 50,000 years. Something that was about to wake up. The stars burned on, cold and indifferent. The message continued to broadcast. And somewhere in the darkness between galaxies, something ancient stirred in its sleep. Drawn by the echo of human voices after so many years of silence, the Great Silence was ending. What came next would be remembered for millions of years to come. The planet Kepler-442b was a graveyard. Lisa Morgan could see that from orbit. The surface was brown and gray, covered in dust and ash. The oceans had dried up long ago. The atmosphere was thin and poisonous. Nothing lived there anymore, but 50,000 years ago, this world had been a paradise. Human colonists had built great cities on its surface. They had filled its skies with flying vehicles. They had planted forests and created lakes. It had been one of the brightest jewels of human civilization, but now it was dead. Like all the human worlds, Lisa guided her ship down through the thin atmosphere. Her team consisted of 12 researchers from various species. They were nervous but excited. No one had set foot on a human world in thousands of years. Whatever they found down there would make history. The ship landed near the ruins of what had once been a major city. The buildings had crumbled to dust. The streets were buried under layers of sediment. Only a few structures still stood, their frames twisted and broken. Lisa stepped out of the ship and felt the weak gravity pull at her body. She wore a protective suit that filtered the toxic air. Through her helmet, she could see the ruins stretching out in every direction. "Spread out," she told her team through the communication system. "Look for anything unusual. The signal coordinates point to somewhere in this area." They searched for hours. They found old machines rusted beyond recognition. They found the bones of animals that had once lived on this world. They found fragments of buildings and pieces of furniture. But they did not find what they were looking for. Then, just as the sun was setting, one of her team members called out, "Dr. Morgan, over here, I found something." Lisa ran to where the researcher was standing. He was a young Keth named Torvax, and he was pointing at the ground. At first, Lisa did not see anything special, just more dust and rubble. Then she noticed the metal. Hidden beneath the debris was a door, made of a material she did not recognize. It was perfectly smooth and showed no signs of age. It looked like it had been made yesterday. "Help me clear this," Lisa said. They worked together to remove the rubble covering the door. As they dug, they found that the door was much larger than they had thought. It was the entrance to an underground structure, something that had been deliberately hidden and protected. When they finally cleared enough debris, they found a control panel beside the door. It was still powered, still glowing with soft blue light after 50,000 years. Lisa reached out and touched the panel. A voice spoke in the ancient human language. Her suit translated the words automatically. Identity confirmed. Human DNA detected. Access granted. The door opened. Cold air rushed out from the darkness below. Lisa turned on her light and looked down. A stairway descended into the earth, leading to something far beneath the surface. "Stay here," she told her team. "I am going down alone." "That is not safe," Torvax protested. "We should wait for backup." Lisa shook her head. "My people built this place. Whatever is down there, it is meant for humans to find. I need to see it myself." She descended the stairs. The walls around her were made of the same strange metal as the door. They were covered in writing, in symbols and diagrams that she could not understand. The deeper she went, the stronger she felt a strange sensation. It was like a pressure in her mind, a feeling that something was watching her. At the bottom of the stairs, she found a chamber. It was circular and vast, filled with machines that hummed with quiet power. In the center of the chamber was a pod made of glass and metal. And inside the pod was a man. He looked young, maybe 30 years old. He had dark hair and pale skin. His eyes were closed, and his chest rose and fell with slow, steady breaths. He was alive. Lisa approached the pod slowly. Her heart was beating fast. She was looking at a human from 50,000 years ago. A man who had been sleeping since before the Great Silence began. As she got closer, the man's eyes opened. They were gray, like storm clouds. They looked at Lisa with an intelligence that made her feel small and young. There was something old in those eyes, something that had seen things she could not imagine. "How long?" the man asked. His voice was rough from disuse, but the words were clear. Lisa checked her suit's data display. "You have been asleep for approximately 50,000 years. The man nodded slowly, as if this answer did not surprise him. "And the message? The warning we sent? Did anyone hear it?" "Yes," Lisa said. "The whole galaxy heard it. Everyone is afraid. They do not understand what it means." The man sat up in his pod. His movements were smooth and controlled, not like someone who had been sleeping for millennia. He looked around the chamber, then back at Lisa. "My name is Samuel Grant," he said. "I was a soldier once. Now I'm something else." He paused. "How long do we have?" How long until what? Samuel climbed out of the pod and stood before her. He was tall and lean, and there was a stillness to him that was unsettling. He moved like a predator, every motion precise and deliberate. Until they arrive, he said. The Devourers. The things that live in the dark between galaxies. We sent the warning because we could feel them stirring. Even in our sleep, we could feel them getting closer. Lisa felt a chill run down her spine. I do not understand. What are the Devourers? Why did humanity disappear? Samuel walked past her and looked at the machines lining the walls. 50,000 years ago, we found something in the ruins of a dead civilization. Records, warnings. The same message repeated over and over again. He turned to face her. Every 100,000 years, something comes. It sweeps through the galaxy and consumes all intelligent life. Every great civilization that came before us, they all fell to the same enemy. That is impossible, Lisa said. We would have found evidence. We would have known. You did find evidence, Samuel replied. The ruins, the dead worlds, the artifacts that no one can explain. You just did not want to believe what they meant. He shook his head. We did not want to believe either. But the evidence was too strong. So we started preparing. Preparing for what? Samuel smiled, and something dark flickered behind his eyes. For war. The Devourers cannot be fought with ships and weapons. They feed on consciousness itself. They eat the minds of intelligent beings. So we had to become something they could not eat. Something that would poison them. He walked closer to Lisa. She wanted to step back, but she forced her stand still. We changed ourselves, Samuel said. We used every technology we could find. We rewrote our bodies and our minds. We turned human consciousness into something toxic. Something that would destroy the Devourers from within. He paused. But the process changed us in ways we did not expect. We became something more than human. And something less. Lisa stared at him. What are you saying? What did you become? Samuel reached out and touched her face. His fingers were cold, impossibly cold. We became predators, he said softly. Hunters. We gave up our humanity to become weapons. And now the time has come to use those weapons. He stepped back and looked up at the ceiling, as if he could see through the rock and metal to the stars beyond. The Devourers are coming, he said. They will be here soon. And when they arrive, they will find that humanity has not been sleeping for 50,000 years. We have been waiting for the chance to hunt. Lisa felt fear wash over her like cold water. She had come to this dead world looking for answers. Instead, she had found something far more terrifying than any question. She had found the reason humanity had disappeared, and she had just woken it up. The Galactic Council chamber was silent. Every representative, every diplomat, every observer sat frozen in their seats. On the central platform, a holographic image of Samuel Grant stood before them. His face was calm, his voice steady, but his words shook the foundation of everything they believed. 50,000 years ago, Samuel said, humanity discovered that the universe was not safe. We found the truth hidden in the ruins of civilizations that had died before us. The truth was simple and terrible. Every 100,000 years, something comes out of the void between galaxies. Something hungry. Something that feeds on the minds of intelligent beings. He paused and looked around the chamber. His holographic eyes seemed to meet every gaze at once. We called them the Devourers. They are not a species in the way you understand the word. They are a force. A hunger given form. They sweep through galaxies like a plague, consuming every thinking creature in their path. Every civilization that rose before us. The ones who built the ancient ruins you study. The ones who left behind technology you cannot understand. They all fell to the devourers. A representative from the Velthari Confederacy stood up. Her name was High Speaker Mira, and she was one of the most powerful beings in the galaxy. If what you say is true, why did you not warn us? Why did you disappear for 50,000 years? Samuel smiled sadly. We did try to warn you. At first, but no one believed us. Your ancestors thought we were paranoid. They thought we were making up stories to gain power. By the time we realized that warnings would not work, it was too late to do anything else. Too late for what? Myra asked. Too late to save ourselves as we were, Samuel said. The devourers cannot be defeated by normal means. Weapons do not hurt them. Ships cannot escape them. They exist partly in dimensions that your science does not even know about. The only way to fight them was to become something that could meet them on their own ground. He raised his hands, and the holographic display changed. Images appeared around him, showing the transformation that humanity had undergone. DNA strands being rewritten, brains being modified, bodies being reshaped into something new. We used every piece of technology we could find, Samuel continued. The secrets of dead civilizations. The forbidden knowledge hidden in ancient vaults. We experimented on ourselves, first in small groups, then in larger ones. The process was painful. Many died. But those who survived became something new. The images showed humans changing. Their eyes began to glow. Their bodies became stronger, faster, more durable. And something else changed too, something that could not be seen, but could be felt. A presence, a power, a hunger that matched the hunger of the devourers themselves. We turned human consciousness into a weapon, Samuel said. The devourers feed on thought, on awareness, on the spark of intelligence that makes life valuable. We made our minds poisonous to them. When they try to consume us, we consume them instead. Council leader Amy Chun stood up. She was a human, one of the descendants of colonists who had been left behind when the transformation began. Her face was pale, her voice unsteady. You are saying that you turned yourselves into monsters, she said. That you became predators. Yes, Samuel said simply. We had no choice. It was become monsters or watch the galaxy die. We chose to become monsters. But why did you leave? Amy asked. Why did you abandon us? Samuel's expression changed. For a moment, he looked almost human again. Almost sad. Because the transformation changed us in ways we did not expect, he said. The hunger we developed, the need to consume consciousness, it does not only work on the devourers. It works on any intelligent mind. When we first changed, we tried to control it. We tried to live among other species. But the hunger grew stronger over time. We started to see other beings, not as people, but as food. He looked directly at Amy. We left because we knew that if we stayed, we would eventually start feeding on you. The races we were trying to protect would become our prey. So we retreated to the edges of the galaxy. We went to sleep and waited. We hoped that by the time the devourers came, we would have enough control to fight them without destroying everyone else. The chamber erupted in chaos. Representatives shouted questions. Some demanded that Samuel be arrested. Others called for the evacuation of entire star systems. Fear spread through the room like fire. Samuel waited patiently for the noise to die down. When it finally did, he spoke again. I understand your fear, he said. You are right to be afraid. We are dangerous. But the devourers are more dangerous. They will be here within months. When they arrive, they will start consuming your worlds one by one. Your fleets will be useless against them. Your weapons will be toys. The only thing that can stop them is us. He paused. But I will not lie to you. When the battle is over, when the devourers are defeated, we will not be able to stay. The hunger will be too strong. We will have to leave again. go out into the void where there is nothing for us to feed on. That is the price we pay for what we have become. Dr. Lisa Morgan was watching the broadcast from her ship in orbit, AROUN de Kepler 442b. She had spent the last week with Samuel, learning about the transformation, about the Devourers, about everything that had happened 50,000 years ago. She understood now why humanity had disappeared. They had not been running from the Devourers. They had been preparing to fight them. And the preparation had cost them everything that made them human. Is there no other way? She had asked Samuel one night, as they sat in the ruins of the old city. We looked for other ways, Samuel had replied. We spent decades searching for alternatives. But the Devourers are too powerful. They have destroyed countless civilizations across millions of years. The only thing that has ever survived them is the void itself, the empty space where there is nothing to consume. So you became the void, Lisa said. Samuel nodded. In a way, yes. We became empty. We hollowed out our souls and filled them with hunger. We became the one thing the Devourers cannot digest. He looked at his hands. Sometimes I try to remember what it felt like to be truly human, to feel joy and love and hope without the hunger underneath it all. But those memories are fading. After 50,000 years, there is not much left of who I used to be. Lisa felt tears running down her face. I am sorry, she said. I am so sorry for what you had to give up. Samuel smiled at her. It was a gentle smile, almost kind. Do not be sorry, he said. We made our choice. We became monsters so that others could remain people. That is worth something, I think, even if we can no longer feel it ourselves. Now, watching him address the Galactic Council, Lisa understood the full weight of that sacrifice. Humanity had not just died 50,000 years ago. They had killed themselves deliberately, destroyed their own souls to create weapons that could save the galaxy. And soon, those weapons would be unleashed. The holographic image of Samuel began to fade. The Devourers will be here soon, he said. Prepare yourselves as best you can. Evacuate the systems closest to the void. And when the battle begins, stay out of our way. His image flickered one last time. We have waited 50,000 years for this moment. The hunt is about to begin. The transmission ended. The council chamber fell silent again. And somewhere in the darkness between galaxies, the transformed humans began to wake from their long sleep. Devourers were coming, but for the first time in billions of years. They were not the only predators in the cosmos. The Devourers came 3 months after Samuel's broadcast. They did not arrive like a fleet or an army. They came like a wave of darkness, a shadow that swept across the stars and swallowed everything in its path. Commander Kyle Bennett stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Starfall, and watched the reports come in. The Keth Collective had lost 40 worlds in a single day. The Veltri Confederacy had lost even more. Entire star systems went dark as the Devourers consumed them, leaving nothing behind but empty space and silence. How fast are they moving? Kyle asked his tactical officer. Faster than anything we have ever seen, the officer replied. Her name was Lieutenant Sarah Woods, and her voice was shaking. At this rate, they will reach the core worlds within 2 weeks. Kyle gripped the railing in front of him. He had commanded ships for 30 years. He had fought pirates and rebels and hostile alien species. But he had never faced anything like this. The Devourers were not an enemy that could be fought. They were a force of nature, a cosmic storm that destroyed everything in its path. What about the humans? He asked. Samuel said they would fight. Where are they? As if in answer to his question, the sensors began screaming alarms. Something was emerging from the dark spaces at the edge of the galaxy. Something massive. Something that made even the Devourers seem small. Sir, Sarah said, her voice barely a whisper. You need to see this. The main screen flickered and changed. It showed a region of space near the galactic rim, where the Devourers had been advancing toward a populated star system. For a moment there was only darkness, the terrible emptiness of the Devourers as they prepared to consume another world. Then the humans appeared. They came out of nowhere, emerging from dimensions that normal sensors could not detect. There were millions of them, billions perhaps, but they no longer looked human. Their bodies had transformed into something else entirely. Some were giants made of light and shadow, towering figures that stretched across thousands of kilometers. Others were smaller, but no less terrifying, creatures of sharp angles and impossible geometry that hurt the eyes to look at. And they were all glowing with a terrible, beautiful hunger. The transformed humans crashed into the Devourers like a wave hitting a shore. The battle, if it could be called a battle, was unlike anything Kyle had ever seen. It was not fought with weapons or ships. It was fought on levels of reality that he could not understand. The Devourers tried to consume the humans, just as they had consumed countless civilizations before. They reached out with their dark tendrils and tried to drain the light from human minds. But something went wrong. Instead of feeding, the Devourers started to writhe and scream. The humans were not being consumed. They were consuming the Devours. Samuel Grant was at the heart of the battle. His form had changed completely since Lisa had first awakened him. He was now a being of pure energy, a star wrapped in human shape. He tore through the Devourers with savage joy, ripping apart their dark forms and absorbing their essence into himself. Around him, other transformed humans did the same. They hunted the Devourers through the void, chasing them across dimensions and realities. The darkness that had threatened to swallow the galaxy was being devoured by a darkness of equal measure, and they were laughing. A sound that echoed across the cosmos, the laughter of predators who had finally found worthy prey. Dr. Lisa Morgan watched the battle from a safe distance, aboard the Starfall. Samuel had given her a device before he left, a small crystal that allowed her to see what was truly happening. Through the crystal, she could perceive the hidden dimensions where the real fight was taking place. It was beautiful. It was terrifying. The transformed humans moved through the void like gods, bending reality around them as easily as normal beings bend light. They were everything Samuel had described and more. Monsters, weapons, predators, beyond anything the universe had seen. But beneath all that power, Lisa could still see traces of what they had once been. In the way they fought to protect each other. In the way they formed ranks and strategies. In the way they celebrated each victory with shouts and cheers. They were still human in some deep, fundamental way. They just were not only human anymore. "They are winning," she said softly. Kyle stood beside her, watching the battle through normal sensors that could only show shadows of what was really happening. "How can you tell?" he asked. Lisa pointed at the crystal display. "The Devourers are running. Look. For the first time in billions of years, they are afraid." It was true. The Devourers had come to this galaxy expecting easy prey. They had consumed countless civilizations across their long existence. Nothing had ever fought back effectively. Nothing had ever hurt them. Until now. The transformed humans gave them no mercy. They chased the Devourers across star systems, through black holes, into the strange spaces between dimensions. Every time the Devourers tried to flee, the humans were there, waiting, hunting, feeding. The battle lasted for 7 days. 7 days of cosmic warfare that reshaped the fabric of reality itself. Stars were born and died in the crossfire. Planets were shattered and reformed. The very laws of physics seemed to bend and twist as two ultimate predators fought for dominance. On the 7th day, the Devourers broke. Whatever passed for their will, their unity, their coordination, It shattered under the relentless assault of the transformed humans. The great wave of darkness that had threatened to consume the galaxy fragmented into a million pieces, each one fleeing in a different direction. The humans pursued them. They chased the fragments out of the galaxy, into the void between stars, into the darkness between galaxies. They did not stop until every piece of the Devourers was scattered across millions of light years. Too broken and weak to ever threaten intelligent life again. When it was over, the transformed humans gathered at the edge of known space. Their forms pulsed with stolen energy, gorged on the essence of their ancient enemy. They had done what no civilization had ever done before. They had defeated the Devours, but their victory had come at a cost. Lisa watched through her crystal as the humans tried to contain the hunger that burned inside them. They had absorbed so much of the Devourers that their need to feed had grown even stronger. She could see them looking at the populated star systems nearby, at the billions of minds that called out like beacons in the dark. They were hungry, so very hungry. They are fighting themselves, Lisa said. The hunger wants them to feed on us. Kyle looked at her sharply. Can they control it? Lisa did not answer right away. She watched Samuel and the others struggle against their own nature. 50,000 years of discipline and sacrifice had made them strong. But the battle had made them stronger and hungrier. Finally, Samuel turned away from the populated systems. One by one, the other transformed humans followed. They gathered together in the void, far from any world or station or ship. Lisa let out a breath she did not know she had been holding. Yes, she said. They can control it. But barely. They cannot stay here much longer. The battle was over. The galaxy was saved. But the true test was just beginning. The transformed humans had proven that they could defeat the Devourers. Now they had to prove that they could resist becoming the Devourers themselves. The transformed humans gathered at the edge of known space, their vast forms glowing against the eternal darkness. They had won. The Devourers were scattered and broken, fleeing into the void where they would spend millions of years trying to heal. The galaxy was safe, but the victory had changed them. They had absorbed so much of the enemy's essence that their hunger had grown beyond anything they had experienced before. Every moment they stayed near the populated worlds was a struggle. Every second, they fought the urge to feed on the very beings they had sworn to protect. Samuel Grant appeared one final time before the Galactic Council. His holographic form filled the chamber, but he no longer looked human at all. He was a being of light and shadow, vast and terrible and beautiful. Only his eyes remained the same, gray and tired and filled with an ancient sadness. "It is done," he said. His voice echoed through the chamber like thunder. "The Devourers will not return for a very long time. Perhaps never. We hurt them badly enough that they may decide this galaxy is no longer worth the pain." Council leader Amy Chun rose from her seat. Her face was pale, but her voice was steady. "And what happens now? What happens to you?" Samuel was silent for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was softer. "We cannot stay," he said. "What we have become is too dangerous. The hunger we carry does not know the difference between friend and enemy. In time, perhaps years, perhaps centuries, we would start to feed on you. We would become the very thing we fought against." A murmur ran through the chamber. Representatives looked at each other with fear and confusion. They had known this moment was coming, but hearing it spoken aloud made it real. "Where will you go?" asked High Speaker Mira of the Velthury. Samuel's form shifted and pulsed. "Out," he said simply. "Beyond the edge of everything. There are other threats in the void between galaxies. Other hungers that threaten the universe. We will hunt them. It is what we were made for." Dr. Elisa Morgan stood in the gallery above the main chamber. She had been given a place of honor as the one who had awakened Samuel from his long sleep. She had watched the battle through the crystal he had given her. She had seen what the transformed humans had become and what they had sacrificed. Now she watched as they prepared to leave forever. "Samuel," she called out. Her voice carried across the chamber, clear and strong. "Is there nothing we can do? No way to help you?" Samuel's holographic form turned to face her. For a moment, something almost human flickered in his ancient eyes. "You have already helped us," he said. "You woke us up. You gave us the chance to fulfill our purpose. That is more than we could have asked for." He paused. "But there is one thing you can do. Take care of the galaxy. Build something beautiful. When we return, even if it takes another 50,000 years, let there be something worth protecting." Lisa felt tears running down her face. "We will," she said. "I promise." Samuel smiled. It was the last truly human expression she would ever see on his face. "One more thing," he added. His voice grew serious again. "If you ever receive a message from us, a message telling you to flee, do not hesitate. Do not investigate. Do not try to help." He looked around the chamber one final time. "Just run." The holographic image began to fade. As it did, Samuel spoke one last time, his words carrying across the entire galaxy through every communication system and data network. "We were human once. We gave up that humanity to save you. Remember us not as we are now, but as we were. Remember that once, a young species looked at the darkness between stars and refused to be afraid. Remember that once, ordinary men and women chose to become monsters so that others could remain people." His image flickered. His voice dropped to a whisper. "Remember that we loved you. Even now, even after everything we have become, we still love you. That is the one thing we could not transform. The one thing we could not destroy." The transmission ended. Across the galaxy, billions of beings watched as the transformed humans turned away from known space. Their vast forms began to move, slowly at first, then faster and faster. They headed outward, toward the void between galaxies, toward the endless darkness where no light had ever shone. They did not look back. Lisa stood at the viewport of her ship and watched them go. She held the crystal Samuel had given her in her hands, feeling its warmth against her skin. Through it, she could still see the transformed humans as they truly were. Beautiful, terrible, broken in ways that could never be healed. "Goodbye," she whispered. "And thank you." 10,000 years passed. The galaxy rebuilt itself after the Great Battle. New civilizations rose. Old ones recovered. The scar left by the Devourers slowly healed. Life went on as it always did, on old Earth, now green and beautiful again after centuries of restoration. A monument stood in the center of what had once been a great city. It was a simple statue, carved from white stone. It showed a young man with kind eyes and gentle hands. The plaque at its base read, "Samuel Grant. He gave everything so that we could live." A young human named Ben Carter stood before the monument. He was 20 years old, a student of history who had spent his whole life studying the Great Sacrifice. He knew every detail of the story, every name, every date, every sacrifice. But standing here, looking at the face of the man who had started it all, he felt like he was seeing it for the first time. "They never came back," he said softly. 10,000 years, and they never came back. An old woman stood beside him. She was his grandmother, a historian like himself. "They are still out there," she said. "Still hunting. Still protecting us from things we cannot imagine." Ben reached out and touched the base of the monument. The stone was warm from the sun. "Do you think they remember us? Do you think they remember being human?" His grandmother smiled. "I think they remember everything. I think that is part of their burden. They carry the memory of what they were, even as they become something else. Ben closed his eyes. He thought about the transformed humans out there in the darkness between galaxies. He tried to imagine what it must be like to live for tens of thousands of years, to fight battles that no one would ever see, to carry a hunger that could never be satisfied. And then he felt something. A whisper at the edge of his consciousness. A message carried across unimaginable distances, encoded in the fabric of reality itself. 2 words, still hunting. Ben's eyes flew open. He looked at his grandmother, but she had not heard anything. She was still staring at the monument, lost in her own thoughts. He had imagined it. He must have imagined it, but deep in his heart, he knew he had not. Ben smiled and placed his hand flat against the monument's base. "Thank you," he whispered. "We remember. We will always remember." Somewhere in the void between galaxies, in a darkness that would drive normal beings mad, something that had once been human heard him. Something vast and terrible and ancient. Something that had given up everything to protect a galaxy it could never return to, and it smiled back. The stars burned on, cold and eternal. Life continued across 1,000 worlds. And somewhere in the darkness, the transformed humans continued their endless hunt, guardians of a cosmos that would never know how close it had come to destruction. They had been human once. They had chosen to become monsters. And in doing so, they had become the greatest heroes the universe would ever know. The end.